This is Affogato. It's an RPG unlike anything I've ever played. So get this. It's a visual novel life sim crossed with coffee making gameplay and a healthy dose of reverse tower defense. Pretty wild, right? Now this week is Steam Next Fest, and with Affogato being a part of it, the team at BFun Studio and Spiral Up Games reached out to see if I wanted to make a video on it, and I agreed. So this video is sponsored by Affogato. Now there's a demo available right now that you can play for yourself. I'll leave a link to it in the pinned comment in the description down below. Now a quick disclaimer before I start this video, they didn't tell me what to say at all. This is 100% my honest thoughts, and as this video goes on, I think you'll see that that's pretty hard to deny. Now before I share my thoughts, let me give you an overview of the game and tell you what it's all about. Now, in the game, you play as Affogato. She's a sorceress with magical powers, and she's accompanied by her partner in crime, Mephisto. Now, they've had a series of failed coffee shops before, however, they arrive in a new town called Aurora to try again. However, things are not as they seem. People are afflicted with a strange illness, and you'll need to cure them. More on how you'll do that in a minute. Now, throughout the game, you'll meet a cast of colorful characters that will come into your coffee shop and share stories with you, like this high school student, Aoi, a super shy college student named Lindsay, and your old friend, Sarah. Now, each have their own distinct personalities, and they all have really cool designs. However, I just really wish they were voiced. In all the story segments, all the characters are static images, and it's kind of hard to get a sense of their own personalities. And this is a shame because I think the art style is actually really cool. All the characters are really well designed and they look neat. However, because they don't move and they don't have voices, it was just kind of hard to tell really what their personalities were like. Now, the game works on a sort of calendar system, similar to what you might find in Persona. Now, for the first handful of days, these are pretty scripted. You don't really have a lot of choice. However, after that, you're free to do activities around town, like visit with other characters, check out other shops, and stuff like that. Now, for the story, you'll need to complete certain tasks by certain days, and at first this felt pretty strict because it was only a matter of days instead of weeks. However, it doesn't seem to really matter because you can't grind in this game. There's nothing else you can really do in between the story segments, so having the time limit be kind of strict didn't seem to really matter. Now, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit here. Let me talk about the different mechanics. Now, this isn't something like Overcooked. It's not going to be super fast-paced where you're just slinging coffee. You'll have one customer at a time, and they'll come in, tell you about their life story, and order a drink. That said, the coffee mechanics are very involved. Now, the game does give you instructions and ingredients, and they need to be done in a very specific order or you won't be able to progress. For example, you'll need to make the coffee before you make the milk, before you make the whipped cream. And what's kind of annoying is there's not really a go back function if you mess up at certain parts. Otherwise, you'll just have to start from the very beginning, which can get annoying when you're trying to learn new drinks. In this respect, this actually feels like a real job rather than a job you might do in a life sim in something like Story of Seasons or Persona. Now, most RPG players might find this a little bit frustrating at first, but give it some time and you might even find it rather relaxing. Now, for coffee nuts that love the process of preparing coffee, you might actually really dig this. And what's kind of cool too is you can add your own little finishing touches like affecting the coffee sweetness, bitterness, and more. This didn't really seem to affect anything stat-wise or money-wise, but it was kind of neat nonetheless. Next, let's talk about the reverse tower defense segments, as this is where you're going to spend the majority of your time in this game. Now, to access these, you'll need to find people afflicted with the illness in this game. And to find them, you're going to need to use your magic vision. Essentially, you'll turn it on, you'll see people with kind of different glowing auras around them. And these can just be people on the streets or in more story-specific moments like a high school or a hospital. Now, this gameplay is sort of a representation of Affogato going into these people's minds and curing them. The gameplay is a little bit complicated to explain, so hang with me for a second. So like I said, this is a reverse tower defense. You're not going to be placing towers around the map, but instead you're going to be the one going through the map. Now, when you begin, you'll need to deploy a character, and these characters are always moving forward. And to deploy new characters, it requires something called Penta. It's essentially a casting cost to deploy a new character. Now, at the beginning, Penta is limited. However, you can find coins that will give you more Penta, or you can use the Hermit character that can generate Penta on its own. And each of the characters have a very specific function. Like I said, the Hermit can't produce penta, but can also do a little bit of damage. The Strength character is mainly for attacking. The Chariot blocks incoming attacks, but can't attack. And the World cures characters, but also can't attack. Now, as your party moves across the grid in the game, you'll see these yellow arrows, and they start in a specific direction. However, you can pause the game, click them, and change the direction that your party will move. This is super crucial for hitting all the enemies on the map, avoiding attacks, picking up other items, running into checkpoints, and much more. Now, the first few levels are relatively easy, however, the challenge does ramp up really fast. Because the gameplay inherently is kind of hard to wrap your head around, navigating the game's more challenging levels can be kind of frustrating. With rare exception, I probably restarted every map in the game at least 5 times. Now, to make this a little bit easier, you can level up your characters in between maps as well as buy new characters from Mephisto. And if you're finding it just a little too hard, you can also put it on easy mode. Now, I started on normal, and I feel like I'm kind of good at games like this. However, I just feel like the challenge was a little too much. So if this type of gameplay doesn't look like it's for you, I would definitely start out on easy and then ramp it up if you need to. Now, the game tries to be fast-paced and strategic at the same time, which I feel like is inherently at odds with itself. However, the game kind of attempts to remedy this by allowing you to pause the game at any time so you can change the yellow arrows or move your characters how you need to, but then also lets you turn the battle speed up to 2 times. So again, it's sort of at odds with itself. Now, eventually, once you wrap your head around how these segments work, they can be really satisfying and engaging. It can feel really good to finally beat a map that you've been beating your head against the wall for turn after turn. However, then you come across the boss battles where you're trying to not only hit the boss, but then trying to dodge attacks, which is kind of out of your control because you can't move your party directly. And then, hey, why not throw other enemy troops that are trying to hit you as well? These just become super annoying and really frustrating. Now, with all that said, let me say this. I wanted to like this game so much. On paper, it sounds super cool. You run a coffee shop, make friends with your customers, run around town, partake in other activities, and also these reverse tower defense gameplay segments actually seemed kind of cool. However, for me, it doesn't seem to really come together in a cohesive way. Each separate piece of gameplay feels just a little too over-designed, and as such, it doesn't really flow well together. It feels like these are 3 totally different games just mashed together instead of them being smoothly integrated together. Now, I'll be the first to admit that I'm often wrong about games, and sometimes I just can't wrap my head around it. So if you disagree with me and you're looking at this and this looks super cool, definitely check it out. I'll leave links to the demo in the description and in the pinned comment so you can try it for yourself. The demo is pretty long and totally free, so hey, you got nothing to lose. And once again, I want to thank Spiral Up Games for sponsoring this video. And if you love JRPGs and want to hear even more that are coming out this year, definitely consider subscribing as I'll be covering tons of games all throughout the year. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.